Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Kerwin Webb, and I want to welcome you to the MasterMinds Podcast, where concepts are clarified, ideas are expanded, and prayerfully new knowledge is cultivated. I want to personally thank you for making time in your schedule to stop and watch, listen, and engage with this content. It is my prayer that this will be edifying and life giving to you. This podcast, I will be joined by my co host and friend, C-Life, Carson Washington. He and I went to Princeton Seminary together, and we had some great conversations about theological topics and all worldly topics. And so this was fun for me, and I think that you will get a kick out of it. On today's episode, we talk a little bit about the origins of the Mastermind podcast, and then we get into some real topics like race, racism, and hypersensitivity here in the United States. Then we talk about the brokenness of our body politic and some of the challenges that we're facing every day. Then it's a real dialogue and a conversation about the difference between privilege and dehumanization. And I think that one really opened my eyes as we were having the conversation. And then we talk about the limitations of binaries and categories that we use in this country. And so I want to invite you to like and share and comment and subscribe to the channel so that you can be notified when we post new content. We're asking that you support us in this new endeavor. You can support us with your financial contributions. You can also become a friend of the show. You can hit us up for more information about that. But this is a phenomenal opportunity for us to engage in serious dialogue that may not be happening in other places. And so I invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy this podcast. And make sure you comment. Make sure you let us know what you think about it so that we can improve as we go each and every time. And so without further ado, we go into the Masterminds Podcast. This is like a project that's been years in the making. Um, I realized that through my journeys and my travels, I have fascinating conversations with fascinating people, and I always wanted a medium to be able to just like really chop it up with brilliant, intelligent people because I think creativity comes out of those types of encounters. And this year, 2022, I said I was going to be accountable. This is my year of accountability, and the things that I had been talking about doing, I was actually going to start doing. And so I actually was telling a friend of mine about this podcast idea that I have. She pulled up this graphic that just came across the screen, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I got to share this." And when I share it, it's going to make me accountable because people are gonna wanna know about it or be interested in it. And one of the people who hit me up first and was like, "Look, I want to be a part of it," was this guy right here. And so, Carson, thank you for jumping on board and being here at the beginning. Um, Introduce yourself. Tell a little bit about why you came here.
So, listen, I'm Carson Washington. Me and Kerwin went to school together, and I go by C-Life. So that's what I'm gonna go by on this podcast, and hopefully together we can help other people see life more clearly. And so I came to it just when I saw the graphic, man. I just was like, wow, this is a dope concept. I wanted to be a part of it because I had been thinking about doing something too. And I was like, man, it'd be way funner to do it with someone who was awesome. And what do you know? Someone awesome, Kerwin, posted a podcast post. I'm like, man, can I get on with you, man? Can we do something together? And we were able to talk about it. And we're here.
Yeah, we're here now. The idea, the concept behind masterminds, that came to me when I moved to New Jersey. I read the book Law of Success by Napoleon Hill, and as my thinking was, there is no way someone can document how you can be successful, right? Like I said, I'll take this challenge, I'll go through these things and see if it makes any difference in my life. And spoiler alert, it has. And one of the first concepts that he talks about is a mastermind. And the mastermind is not just one genius level person, but it is what happens, the synergy that results from being in harmony with your thoughts and your energy with intelligent people. And so the concept for me is to get around intelligent people so that that third mind, that mastermind, can show up. And then it's amazing at what interesting things happen. And I remember back in school when sitting in classes listening to Carson just like ideate and think, I was just like, wow, this dude right here. And so I was like, oh yeah, you could be a part. Like, help me out. Let's do this. Because when we have conversations, it always touches on all of the levels, right? It's more than just surface level conversation. It really gets to the heart of who we are. And that's one of the things that I really like and respect about you, Carson, is that you are definitely an example of Proverbs 27:17, iron sharpening iron, because in my encounters with you, I find that people who step to you the wrong way, like intellectually, theologically, or just morally, it's easy for you to like slice them up like butter in a
Uh,
nice way. You know what I mean?
oh man, that's that argumentative spirit that I got. uh, but man, flesh this out for us. So is the mastermind two minds coming together, and through that conversation creating another mind, or is it like something else happening in the conversation? Um,
Yeah, so
but
it's not just limited to two. So it's two or more minds that are coming together in harmony, harmony of purpose, right? So we're gathering together, and if we say that our goal is really to impact humanity for the better somehow, right? We can start with that broad range. As we start to dialogue and dissect the challenges that we see, ideas start coming up, and just synergies and networking opportunities start to show up. And Napoleon, that's what Hill would describe as the mastermind showing up. It's the combination of the intelligences of the
of
people in the
multiple,
room that is
yeah,
greater. Yeah, yeah. And so I've been in mastermind in situations where just things are just flowing, right? The synapses are just firing off, and ideas and just building and community. It's really life giving to have those types of working groups, and so I thought, let's intentionally create that and share it, because what comes of it will benefit not only you and I or whoever the guests are that we would talk to, but all of those who are listening, because there's so
yeah,
much wisdom in our journeys that we can share.
that's dope, man. That's
Yeah.
dope.
Um, so I was particularly interested in asking you um, about a topic that's been on top of my mind. Is there a hypersensitivity to race and racial issues in the country today?
Ooh, man, it's a I guess it's not very, it's actually not that difficult to answer. It's just nuanced in so many different ways. But I would say yes. I would say yes. Um, it is a hypersensitivity, but I wouldn't necessarily say that hypersensitivity is a negative thing. I think it's a
Mm,
hypersensitivity because of the series of events that have taken place during the pandemic and immediately before the pandemic. I mean, we've just as a country, we've been through a lot, from the presidency of Trump into the presidency of Biden. Even before then,
mhm.
from I'd say probably from the start of Barack Obama, racial tensions have been, um, America's
Escalate.
first black president has started to escalate, or maybe not even escalate, maybe just excavate, right? This maybe they were there and they just got dug up.
Mm.
So I don't think anything has happened that created the racial tension, but things have happened to unveil it, and you it gets to a peak in the Trump presidency, um, because Trump was in some ways a personification of the country, right?
Mm,
Really, I mean, he was a TV personality, popular, and the country had really taken popularity as some sort of um,
litmus
value
test.
authority, right? So if
Yeah.
you're popular, then you're authority in something, regardless of, you could be a comic, a stand-up comic, right? And all of a sudden you're a political authority. You could
Yeah.
be a rapper, or you could be a um, basketball player, a football player, and you speak out, and because you're popular, people listen to what you say.
That voice is amplified and magnified regardless of your competence in the role that is needed.
Yeah, and then what he also showed was kind of like how you can use the media
Hmm.
to create negative press that keeps you relevant. Right?
Yeah.
He was in the news his entire presidency, um, and knew what to say to inflame and embolden the right people in both directions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? To keep the conversation going. And so I think that, I say that he was a personification because the country was split before he was president. Him being president just helped us to see how divided the country was. That's what my take on it is.
So it for me, it also shows just how, and I really believe that this term is way overused, how broken the systems of checks and balances are.
Yeah.
Because in the beginning, um, people dismissed him as an impossibility. There's no way, right?
I
With
mean,
certainty, people.
hold on. He announced it at a Comedy Central roast. I think that we're forgetting that he said that he think about running for president after he was roasted
By
by
Barack
Snoop.
Obama.
like,
Oh, Snoop.
like Snoop Dogg was on the roast. I literally watched the roast while I was on deployment, and he announces it at the end of the roast. Like, and there's all these people, and they are ripping him up,
Hmm.
right? And he's like, "Well, I'm gonna run for president." Like, and everybody thinks that he's joking, and he
Yeah,
does, and he
and he
wins.
wins.
Like, and he wins.
Where, who, if we were to assign blame, who would bear the most blame? The American people, the American media, or the elected officials who are supposed to be stewards of the governmental apparatus?
Um, you mean blame for Trump?
No, 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 not necessarily Trump, because Trump was not the disease. Trump was the symptom. He was
Yeah,
just
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
personification
yeah.
of what was already there. So where do we go to begin to correct those things if we say anything was defective in the process, if the reality TV star became president?
Well, I mean, can we blame a fish for swimming in water? Right? I think the thing is the racial categories themselves demand binary, and that the binary is from creation value laden, right? So if there is something that we can refer to as a white and something that we can refer to as a black, that exists on a value laden binary, that is white supremacy. And I don't think that we can get out of all of the problems that come with that if we're not willing to challenge the structure, the actual structure itself. So you can't say I'm going to create categories intentionally to divide people and then say, well, why is everyone divided? Like, we're divided because the categories themselves divide us, right?
Yeah.
They're not, they've become categories that represent certain cultures in a very contextualized setting, right? So white American and black American, we can refer to those as sorts of cultures. However, um, cosmopolitan those cultures are, but it's still a binary. And I think the Latinx community, kind of helps remind us that like it's not just black and white people in the world, like it's other people. But the binary itself, the conversation of race, is a child of white supremacy. And so if we still want to have that conversation using the grammar of black, white, brown, whatever other colors we want to throw in there, that's just something. Divisions is something we're gonna have to deal with.
So if
In my,
that, hmm?
I said, in my opinion,
No. I like the way you say that because I agree, but I want to make sure that I'm hearing you. So the conversations around race is a relic of white supremacy. Did I hear that correctly?
yeah. I mean, what else would we be talking about?
So how what then? How do we faithfully and responsibly have the conversation that needs to be had, which is not a binary conversation, because, like you said, the Latinx community and uh, other ethnicities that don't fit into those categories. How do we? Because we as Americans have been afraid to have any conversation that begins to decenter whiteness.
Yeah, we have, and I don't think, um, when you have a group of people who do not understand themselves in the social context as white, spending 45 minutes to 2 hours talking about white fragility or white flight or white guilt, who's the center of those conversations, right? So when you talk about centering things, who are the center of those conversations? We talk, it's a group of people, none of them identify as white, and we're talking about white privilege. Why are we not talking about something else? So I think a lot of the conversations around the race issue, continue to make it sensitive, and rightly so, because we've in some ways grasped at these ideas as identities, right? So when you say, for example, someone is white, right? Should they be proud to be white? And what exactly is white signify? What does it signify? Well, what exactly is white referring to? Is it referring to a heritage, a culture? Is there a language that white speaks, and a set of foods that white eats? Right. So what exactly? In contrarily, and this is part of that whole reverse racism debate. But if we just kind of look at it objectively for a little bit, you can say things about blackness that you can't say about whiteness. For example, I'm black and I'm proud. You can say that. It's songs about it.
Mm-hmm.
No songs that say I'm white and I'm proud. Right. So but when that is accepted on both ends as identities, it will have a dehumanizing impact. Just period. So earlier on, 50s, 60s, a high value of white power dehumanized black people. That's a fact. So a high value of black power, has it liberated white people? No. The ideas themselves are divisive, is my point.
Mm.
And so to uphold another one degrades, to raise one degrades the other. And there's it seemingly no balance to this binary, without doing a whole lot of talking. Like a whole lot of explanation, addition of grammar. Like, so well, you got to really look at it. You got to think about it. Our people was oppressed, so the rules are different.
So I can hear that, and I see on your face that it's almost like a come on now, like really. And on the one hand, yes, looking at it from a different way, that also I could hear that being translated as we speak different languages, we have different experiences, and so in the conversation, you have to come over to my side and understand that when you see this, this is what I see as the recipient or on the other side of this action or inaction by you. And so it does take a lot of conversation and shared languages and shared understanding, which is what we can't get to because of the emotions and feelings that surround any of these difficult topics. It's
Uh,
fine.
but
But
real quick, real question. I'm gonna throw this in. I want you to chew on it.
okay.
So, we talked about experience. We talked about coming. You talking about coming on your side to kind of see from where I'm sitting.
Yes.
Rachel Dolezal.
So what?
Rachel Dolezal.
Oh gosh.
Contrarily, Michael Jackson.
Mm.
What do we do there, man? Those two wrenches in the conversation. Now, Rachel Dolezal is living black.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's in the NAACP
Mm-hmm. Leading one.
leading. If there's not a renunciation of white privilege, I don't know what it is. And everyone ate her up. Now, Michael Jackson did it a little while back. He went
Yeah.
from an afro and brown skin
To,
to just straight up the straightest of hair and the palest of skin. I mean, my homeboy was wearing an umbrella. He had an umbrella. He had an umbrella,
yeah. Yeah.
and the social responses were very different.
Mm. Mm.
When it may, I mean, if we think about it historically, we would think that Michael Jackson's switch would be more problematic, right? I mean, he still has a sister that
Who
is
is?
clearly black.
Yes. Yes.
But I mean, he's putting out music that seems to be somewhat political. He's got a couple of songs that are political esque, right?
Yeah.
He's always filming in Africa, right? So, is that's a real kind of touchy subject, but he wasn't thrown away by the black community. Not until he did some other things, but we won't go there.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Not
Right.
for
Right.
not for
Not for. per-
skin, not for that. And then you have Rachel Dolezal, who was ripped, completely ripped up to shreds. I mean, they was eating her up on the View. Like so chew on that, man. Tell me your thoughts. She came to the other side.
So
Whatever perspective that she has will never be equally valid by no stretch of the imagination in the black community.
here's my first thought as you said that. I was wondering and interrogating, and I don't remember all of the details. I do know what she did. She's a white person who became the president of a local branch of a black organization, NAACP, and people ripped her to shreds. You're right. I'm wondering if some of the, no, I'll say this. I know a lot of the backlash was just piling on and ignorant responses because of, right, clickbait or whatever.
Mhm.
But also there is and can be a legitimate fear of exploitation of this thing that people at least pretend to be sacred, which is our black organizations. You're somebody who is not black and you're coming to infiltrate. You're coming.
Yeah,
It could be that this person just actually cared about the mission and the work and the
at the
behavior,
very
the
least,
reaction
very-
towards.
at the
Go ahead.
very least, you participated.
Yeah, yeah, more so than some of the detractors probably, right? And so it's like how can you, and so I can't make sense of our collective responses other than a what could be a defensive, like, well, we have to protect our own. Yeah, Michael had some problems, but he was or he is or he did. We can find ways to rationalize almost anything as acceptable, but then when you lay two examples right side by side just like you did, it's hard for people to stand flat-footed in what they say.
Yeah,
Um yeah, that's a good one.
I think
That's why I
I think
wanted
it
you.
goes to show though that the binary that we've created as a society isn't
That's not.
stabilized. It's not a fixed binary, right? And so, whereas we say we have these ideas, very strict white black,
Mhm.
something that is one that understands himself as white, one that understands himself as black, but they're really, as a societal performance, not stable. Yeah, at one point in time, you can see and encounter outside of the media Michael Jackson as a white man.
Yes.
And at another point in time, you can encounter Rachel Dolezal as a black woman. Even though after everything has come out, we can say she's not a black woman.
Mhm.
If her parents don't get upset and throw that out there, she is still walking around being
As a black.
perceived in the world as a black woman,
Yeah.
right? So I mean, I I, I brought them up to say, how else do we have a conversation about a very fragile concept without it being oversensitive? Because we're talking about so much. When we say, when I say I'm black, I'm talking about a lot there that
You
goes
yeah.
way deeper than my skin tone.
It that conversation in some ways, and not being um melodramatic or anything, but that conversation ultimately leads to a societal restructuring because we find that the categories don't fit anymore.
Yeah,
And that means we have to expand the dialogue and then include more perspectives, which complex, difficult, and messy, especially at a time of great division, because we almost can't agree on whether the sky is blue or not, right? Based on your political labels.
yeah.
So complex. Damn. Okay. I just had another thought. It's because you are a veteran. Veterans get politicized also, right? With a lot of things. How I don't even know what my question is, but it's just like interesting to think that all of these intersections you have and can speak from them, from the reality of your lived experiences. Like, what does it say that veterans, military, law enforcement um, took part in, like, the January 6th insurrection, right? We're supposed to trust. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, listen, yeah, deception is real. I really believe people don't do that without being greatly deceived. And during, like, up following that time, coming up to that time, I I am one who tries to at least see from both sides or to
Mhm.
hear from both sides. Hear is probably the better word. I try to hear both sides. Um, if you listen to the polarized news stations, I don't think January 6th is that hard to understand.
Mm.
I mean, it's it's people, being inflamed emotionally. Military, police, they're still humans. They still have thoughts and ideas, and as Americans, they're going to try to stand and fight for their thoughts and ideas. That's part of, you know, the political process, right? You believe something, you believe that it is right, you believe that it should be used to guide the society, and so you lobby for it and you mobilize for it and you um, vote in the people who are going to get done what you want done. So that's part of the political process. Um, but the military is is really just kind of like a smaller um, pool of America. So like a lot of times stuff happens in the military and then it happens in society or vice versa, right? So
Mm.
the society kind of imposes certain thoughts on the military. Military tries out new things, and then it gets switched over into society. Um, so I think that just goes to show that the country is very divided, right? Even with people who have dedicated their lives to fighting for their country and sacrificing their time and the quality of their families, um, they the division has touched all of America. Is my point.
Is the thing that would cause someone who has taken the oath to defend and protect is whatever the perceived grievances are they real or manufactured for the purpose of division? Like by that I mean, if you are sitting down, you like the conversation that you and I are having, if you are sitting down with someone of a completely different ideology than you, and both people came and listened, and would they still leave polarized, or would they see the commonalities more so than the differences? What is your honest thought on that?
I think maybe in some instances um, there can be some unity that takes place or some coming together. I think the coming together is going to be more so on human terms. The policies or the opinions. I'll give a real life example. Um, Abortion. Now, the abortion conversation, at least me publicized one, has been one of pro life and pro choice. But a lot of the pro life industries and pro life lobbyists are not strictly against abortion. So that they believe that under certain circumstances, abortion is okay. At the other end, the more radical end of that is not pro life, pro choice. It's probably pro choice and then anti abortion. Like, so that group of people that are to criminalize abortion, you're never going to get um, that group to be okay with pro choice group. That's never going to happen. But the conversation that is more moderate, which is the pro life, pro choice conversation, where you do have people who are politically under the guise of pro life, um, supporting women's right to choose in certain circumstances, right? That's the moderate position that has been polarized. So now in the public, people believe that pro life is the polar opposite of pro choice when politically it isn't.
Mm.
So the American people are at odds like this, but the politicians themselves are working together.
Mm.
Like, especially as it relates to state, which is um, what the issue is, right? So, I mean, you think about, for example, when they were talking about, oh, people was in the media, they're going to overturn Roe v. Wade,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's going to be an overturning. It wasn't an overturning. The law itself was 16 weeks, right? So you can have abortion up to 16 weeks. The radicalized polarization of that conversation is, oh, they're trying to overturn Roe v. Wade, right? They're trying to take away a woman's right to choose. Now I know I'm gonna get a lot of flack for this, but that's the facts of the matter. It was 16 weeks. Now some people may say, hey, 16 weeks is long enough. Other people may say 16 weeks isn't long enough. That's irrelevant. The
Mm-hmm.
relevant portion of it is that in both circumstances, abortion is okay. One just says after 16 weeks you can't do it anymore, and the other one says after when? 24 weeks.
Something like that. Yeah. So,
So
uh,
so they're not radical, they're not polarized opposites, is my point. They're different opinions, but they're
but
not on
not
the opposite end. The opposite end would be no abortion unless the mother is gonna die or her body has been mishandled to create the baby. That's the polarized opposite. No other reason. Poverty's not a reason. You don't want it. It's not a reason. That would be the polar opposite. That would infringe upon a woman's right to choose. But tailoring it to 16 weeks isn't a strong no. It's a moderate no. And so that moderate position has been collapsed into a polarized one. This happens at a lot of different issues. And I think that's the problem. If it wasn't being polarized, you might
not
be
even
able
know about it, care
to,
about it.
yeah, you might not even know about it, or it might be like they have a discussion, maybe settle at like 20 weeks.
Yes, generally to what you're saying, but Texas is flashing in my mind, and even before this one, that where bounties are able to be collected if you violate that law. When the hospital admitting law privileges and those types of things forced clinics to close,
Hmm.
would that be in your opinion considered like abridging or obstructing a woman's right to choose?
Oh no, so Texas definitely has the radical polarized uh, position, and they're mobilizing. So it's not. I'm not saying that it doesn't exist. I'm not. I'm saying that focusing on this bill is a smokescreen. If your
Because
fight is
gotcha.
to to hold women's rights, right? So it
Okay.
was kind of like what we saw. So we just saw the case, right, where the shooters. I'm trying to remember the dude's name who was running and he was jogging and he got shot.
Ahmaud Arbery.
Ahmaud Arbery. The same situation happened around George Floyd, right? They were really close.
Hmm.
The Ahmaud Arbery case is very clearly racism. No ambiguity whatsoever. You have someone, Ahmaud Arbery, who is completely innocent, completely clean record. And what case do we choose? George Floyd. And what happens in the George Floyd's case? What does the conversation actually become in the case? It becomes about defunding the police. Was a smoke screen that they were throwing up. It becomes
Okay.
about, oh, he was on drugs. Is a
Hmm.
smoke screen that they were throwing up.
Hmm.
Now let's take it back a couple of years. Who do they choose to do the bus boycott? Was she even the first one who had a problem on the bus? No, she wasn't the first one that had a problem on the bus. If this wasn't even the only state that bus problems was happening.
Yeah.
But because of her standing in the community,
Hmm.
they said, hey, we're going to choose her. You can't mess this one up. Please try to demonize her. It's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
Cold. Like they used the Breonna Taylor and the George Floyd case to completely take Ahmaud Arbery out of the news. That happened. Now
So
why? Why
you
can
say
that happen?
what?
Why would that happen? The Ahmaud Arbery case, everyone can agree with that this is classic racism. You cannot get around that. This man is unarmed and he's jogging.
Did you hear the defense attorney for the McMichaels that when it was either Al Sharpton or Jesse Jackson that had gone down there, and he said, "Okay, we can't have all these black pastors coming down here."
Can't have all these black pastors coming
You
down.
said this out loud.
That's not the case that we want publicized. That's the
uh,
point. That's the point. And it's not the case you want publicized because it doesn't buy into your polarizing crap. You
it
can
doesn't fit.
polarize Breonna Taylor. You can say, well, her the guy she was with shot back. And that's true. You can polarize George Floyd. Oh, he was on drugs. I don't know what that has to do with him being handcuffed. He's already detained. But it gives credence to the crap that people want to pull in order to polarize the conversation and take it off of the actual issue.
And distract from the facts that actually would galvanize. Like, wait, whoa, whoa, whoa! I get all of that, but this is something different.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, at the same time, what other cases going on when the Ahmaud Arbery case is going on?
it was that. It was the
It was
protests and short.
it was the guy who shot the two white dudes.
Oh,
It was,
Kyle,
we were
Kyle Rittenhouse.
Kyle Rittenhouse. We were making all the memes about him crying on the
Yeah,
stand.
yeah.
He shot two guys that were chasing him who were white. That's who he shot. Okay, one of the guys hit him in the back of the head. Okay, so is that the case that we need to be focusing on? Is this really the case that needs to be at the heart of conversations in Black Twitter?
So it depends on who is funding your Black Twitter and what narrative I want you to carry out. Because there are those who I guarantee think just like you and say, "Oh no, this one is too cut and dry. Let's use the ones that's more muddy because we can then play on the emotions and the
People,
sympathies."
yeah,
Ah, okay.
yeah, you can't play
Last,
on emotions and sympathies.
huh?
I said you can play on the emotions and sympathies. If somebody, I can ask this to all the listeners and you included. If somebody hits you in the back of the head and is chasing you, and you have a semi-automatic weapon, it doesn't matter where you got it from, it has bullets in it. What are you going to do? Come on. This is not anyone who has ever been in a physical altercation isn't going to think twice about pulling the trigger. The facts of the matter is he got off and the guy who bought the guns going to jail. The guy who bought the gun is going to jail and Kyle Rittenhouse going home.
I think one of the reasons that one caught wildfire the way that it did in the wake of all of the other things is that if Kyle Rittenhouse was not a white man, would he have been able to do what he did, which is right cross state lines with this open carry?
So is
Go
Kyle
ahead.
Rittenhouse a problem?
Huh?
You're right. If Kyle Rittenhouse was not a white man, maybe he wouldn't have been able to do that. And that's the problem. It's not that he did it. It's the problem that people who aren't white can't do it.
Can't do that. Yeah.
It's our dehumanization. What he did was not privilege. What he did was law. What he did was find just dealings of the actual law. We're upset because we don't get justice. That's 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 what that statement says. That statement has nothing to do when you get stopped by the police. Them treating you kindly is civil. That's what they should do. They should not criminalize you. That has nothing to do with privilege. That has to do with people of color being chronically dehumanized in the American population. You're chronically dehumanized. And our dehumanization looks like someone else's privilege, but it's not. That's the law. Privilege is, I'll give you an example of privilege. Privilege is not having enough on your resume for the job and still getting it because you're white. That's privilege.
Wait now.
Dehumanization is dehumanization is getting stopped by the cops and them checking your car without having a reason to. That's you
Yeah.
being dehumanized. A white person getting stopped by the same officer and getting the ticket and not having to be uh, degraded. That's not privilege. That's how it should be.
But okay, all right. So here I'm gonna have to disagree with you on that because that
Oh,
fact
this
that
is
you
what I was
just
waiting for.
named it, the fact that certain people are degraded and dehumanized and others aren't is the
Mhm.
privilege. And you
That's
said that
not
it's
how can you say that that is a privilege.
because this privilege was conferred to you in law, by law, through law,
No, 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 no.
so that
The
no.
privilege, no, the privilege was taken. So citizenship was taken away from us. Privilege wasn't given to them. We were taking away something that we should have. They weren't given something that they shouldn't have. Kyle Rittenhouse should have his just day in court, and the defense made a case. What he did was acting in self-defense. Now, where he got the gun from is irrelevant to because we're talking about what this is. Is this murder? No, it is not. Maybe aggravated assault, maybe, but they tried him for murder, and it is not murder by the law. So to say that because he got off, that's his privilege. No, if he was black, he still should have got off. And if he didn't, given all the same facts, hold on, if he didn't, given all the same facts, that is something taken away from the black man, not something given to the white man. He wasn't given anything to say this is a privilege. So, and I think that this is how race operates, right? Because the critique that we've had on the white black thing is white people don't have to know they white, right? That's part of the privilege. You don't have to think about your race. That's not a privilege. That's how everything should be.
Should be,
We
but
have
it's
been
not.
humanized. So the thinking about our race is criminalized by the masses. That's something that's been taken away. I think the only way that we get to a privileged conversation is by centering whiteness in the conversation. If you look at it from the black experience, something is being taken away from you. You're not at zero, right? So if we're saying um, if we're saying that we'll go up and down, if we're saying that this is white and black in society,
Mhm,
privilege would say that white goes up. Wait, the white goes up. That's privilege, and this
mhm,
is zero.
mhm.
What has happened is black has gone down. This is the state in society, not this. That ain't the state. If we was at zero, we will be way further along. We're not at
Right,
zero. We have
but
to
so
prove ourselves to get up to zero.
so so yes, and in all of those words, I want to say that we are saying, even though we're saying it differently, we're saying the same thing because that gap, that difference, no matter how it got there, whether I took it from this group or I gave more to this group, that difference, right,
Mhm.
is the privilege of being not this group, right? Whether
But that's not so. When I think about the semantic range of privilege, it has to be something that is given to you. I
the
privilege you with
right,
something.
right, and
And I'm
here it
saying,
is. Wait. Listen.
go ahead.
The courtesy of citizenship and humanity in law and in practice is the privilege I'm giving to those who have this skin tone that is preferable.
So
I'm giving you,
when you ask people,
yeah,
when you say to the white one, you need to renounce your white privilege. What I'm saying is the difference. Hold on. The difference is if by your standard, up, this is zero. Renounce your
mhm,
privilege. Oh, that makes sense. That's what I should do. But if the thing is here, down, and you're saying renounce your privilege, be less of a citizen, that's weird. Why are black people concerned with that as opposed to, wait a minute, I need to be brought up? Listen, you should not be criminalizing me. That's not a product of privilege. That's a product that I'm human, right? So it's a difference between humanizing black folk or talking about something like an idea of white privilege, right? So you can talk about all the different ways whites can renounce their privilege, and I guarantee there will be more actionable ways black people can be humanized every
Okay.
time.
I don't find it helpful to ask white people to renounce their privilege necessarily, but to be mindful of and to utilize that privilege to do that humanizing of those who have been taken from. Because you, as a person of privilege, loosely, you have more capacity and capital to help invest in this thing, whether it is um, causing or encouraging those who are like-minded to of you to consider a different perspective, right? That's like, even that is me exercising my privilege, the ability to say to you person, hey, consider this differently, whereas this other person, I'm not I don't even know this, so right. So even those ways of deploying privilege, so I wouldn't say renounce it. I would say be mindful and utilize it in a positive solution seeking way. But interesting, we
We
got
yeah,
seven.
got to get back
uh,
to this. I said we got to get back on this one. This is gonna come up. Come
Yeah,
up.
yeah, yeah. And it's part of that language, word choice, meaning making, and who's allowed to do it and who's counts and who doesn't. I think that becomes some of the difficulties because looking at it the same way, it's like, no, that's different. Nah. Somewhat is different, somewhat is the same. But I will let you take the last 6, 7 minutes to frame us, close us, because we're almost at an hour. Let's see how you wrap this
Oh
thing up.
man, let's wrap this up. So basically, friends, we recognize that these conversations are sensitive conversations, and rightly so, because it's a sensitive issue. It's a lot on the line when we
Mhm.
talk about these things, because even though they're ideas and social constructs, people have taken grasp of them in real unique ways. So um, a threat or a question of one's blackness is uh, a existential threat,
Mhm.
right? It's a problem. It questions who they are as a being, because black refers to their culture. And in the same token, a critique too heavily on the white seems to have a similar, not the same, um, problem. And so the country is divided. Where do we go from here? How can um, masterminds help to think through this? I think we brought us some pretty good things. We brought about unity, and we thought about getting out of the conversation of whiteness and blackness, which I think is still very much important. And though we have different perspectives on white privilege versus or not versus white privilege in conversation with black humanity and black dignity, um, these things will probably unfold as we tackle race issues in the future. So
Oh
that's
man,
that's all I got to say. I really want to encourage the audience to struggle and to think about these things, and get a little uncomfortable as you're thinking about them. And hopefully, we'll be able to tap into the mastermind.
absolutely, man. Thank you, C-Life. Thank you for dropping knowledge and wisdom and giving life to our listeners and to myself. I'm looking forward to more of these because every time I talk to you, man, I learn, I grow, and I hope I become a better person because of it. Until next time, everybody, we're gonna say peace to you and see
Peace.
you when we back.